Thank you. Is this thing on? Mic check? Everybody can hear me okay anyway? Hi, thanks everybody for coming out. I want to thank Norman Horn and Andrew Glass, especially from Libertarian Longhorns, for inviting me today to speak to you guys. Back when I drove a cab, my customers would always say that I should lecture at UT, so here I am finally. All right, the subject today is Iran. I thought I might talk about war, peace, and the state in general, libertarian perspectives, a little revisionist history for you. But I think revising the case that they're making for war with Iran coming up here in our near future is much more important, so I'm going to try to focus on that. I'll go ahead and say also at the beginning, I rely heavily on 5 major sources here, and there are a bunch more, but Dr. Gareth Porter from IPS News Service, Gordon Prather, who's our in-house nuclear scientist at antiwar.com, Philip Giraldi, who is a former CIA officer who writes for us at antiwar.com and for the American Conservative magazine, and Juan Cole. Juan Cole from informedcomment.com, a professor of history at the University of Michigan, and Robert Dreyfus, also I forgot to mention. Robert Dreyfus, great work for the nation over the years about these things. So just wanted to drop those names at the beginning for you there. That's where I get, well, and double check. A lot of my information is with those guys. All right, so where we are at the end of April 2008 is, again, kind of crossing our fingers, I think, and hoping that Dick Cheney is not able to get away with starting a war against Iran. We've been here before, about a year ago. The pressure was really high, and it was thought that Dick Cheney would be able to get away with starting airstrikes and an eventual full-scale air war against Iran last spring. He was primarily thwarted by the former head of Central Command, a man named Admiral Fallon, who has now been removed, and it seems like he was actually the biggest obstacle in the military, standing in between Dick Cheney and hell on earth. So he's now gone, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mullen, the new head of Central Command, our society's newest religious icon, St. General David Petraeus, may peace be upon him, and Secretary of Defense Robert Gates have all been singing a chorus just in the last week or two, renewed chorus that the time may have come for us to do something about Iran, which of course means bomb them from the air. That's something, so I guess we'll have to do that. McCain, our 3 presidential candidates, John McCain likes to sing songs about bombing. This is how seriously he takes it, and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have both made it abundantly clear that they're willing to go far beyond any actual treaty obligation the United States has to attack Iran in the event that they were to attack Israel, which of course is a far-fetched premise anyway, but a premise to the question that they both accepted when they answered that damn right they will wage war on behalf of Israel and don't mind. And we are in danger. I don't think that George Bush, and all indications are that George Bush does not have really the will or the political capital, as he calls it, to just go ahead and push a button and start a war tomorrow. But basically the danger is that he will be able to seize upon a pretext, whether a border incident between Iraq and Iran, a major attack, say on the Green Zone, for example, that they can try to blame on Iran, an incident, as we saw again last Friday in the Persian Gulf between American and Iranian boats. If they can find a way to seize on one of these incidents and blow it up into a larger event, they certainly will try to. I think we all remember last year when they, I'm sorry?
I have a question. It's about, I heard something on the news grapevine that Nancy Pelosi said that she would move to impeach Bush if he,
Right, he and Congress, yeah, after the fact. After the war, then they promised to impeach and remove them. We can all take a deep breath of satisfaction.
After.
In any case, a year ago, British sailors and Marines were captured. 15 British sailors and Marines were captured and held in Iran for about 2 weeks. And of course, it just came out this last week in the news, at least in the British papers. I'm not sure whether they covered this on NBC News with Brian Williams, but it came out in the British papers that, of course, the British, in fact, were in Iranian waters, contrary to the lies they told you at the time. And I think we all remember just how easily they could have blown that thing up into a war last year if some more signs were pointing their way. And really, I mean, the thing is that there are a lot of excuses for starting a war with Iran. None of them are good ones, but there are a lot of them. And the thing is, well, my friend Tim came up with this little exercise before the war against Iraq. He said, let's take all the reasons for war against Iraq, and let's just assume for the sake of argument that they're true, and we'll assign them a value of a 1 or a 0 as to whether or not they're a good enough excuse to go to war. We can do the same thing with Iran. Excuse number 1, they want to be bombed. Well, that very well may be true. We'll get to that here in a second. No, it's not. But even if it was, that certainly is not a good enough reason for America to spend our lives and treasure just because somebody else wants to be attacked. The claim is that they're making nuclear weapons. Again, not true, but if it was true, would that be an excuse for America to start an aggressive war against Iran? A country which Secretary Gates himself just said is not a military threat to the United States just a few weeks ago. Again, if we assign that a 1 or a 0, we get 0. And we can go on like that. They've promised to destroy Israel. They're supporting the Mahdi Army's resistance to the U.S. and Iraq. They're friends with Osama bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri. They support Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in the West Bank. They help the Taliban in Afghanistan. It might help make Jesus come back to kill everyone, including the Jews, in a massive supernatural Holocaust sooner than he would have otherwise. And if we assign each of these excuses for war with Iran a 1 or a 0 as to whether they're good enough, we get 8 zeros. Well, what's 8 times 0? Right, not a good enough excuse, or a combination of good enough excuses to bomb Iran. So first of all, I guess I'd just like to go through these. They want us to bomb them. William Crystal, the editor of the Weekly Standard, has said, the Iranian people dislike their regime. I think they would be the right use of targeted military force, but especially if political pressure before we use military force could cause them to reconsider whether they really want to have this regime in power. And this is actually something that the neoconservatives, I don't think he's just trying to lie to us. I think these neoconservatives actually convinced themselves that this is the case, that the Iranian regime is so hated that if we were to just drop a couple of precisely placed satellite-guided munitions at the right regime targets in a decapitation-type strike, like they tried to do against Saddam Hussein, that somehow the people of Iran will just rise up and help the U.S. overthrow their government and install an American-friendly puppet dictator, perhaps the son of the Shah Reza Pahlavi, or someone fun like that. But of course that's just not true. How did Americans react when we were attacked on September 11th? Did we all rise up to help overthrow the Republican Party? Right. Did we all champion Osama bin Laden? Thank you for attacking the government we hate so much? No, of course not. We didn't. And of course the Iranian people, if bombed, will rally around the Ayatollahs, who in fact are weak and who in fact are quite disliked by the people of Iran. American military intervention, of course, is the #1 way to put an end to that feeling of dissent that they have going on there right now. In fact, recent parliamentary elections have shown that the hardliners are just not favored, except when they seem to be protecting the people from American perfidy. Okay, but so besides that ridiculous Weekly Standard-based fantasy, there are 2 major propaganda themes that the administration is using to try to justify another war, and some lesser ones. The 2 major themes have to do with their nuclear program and their involvement in Iraq. Quickly, I'd like to just try to take on some of the lesser claims that serve basically as background noise in the case for war. If you ever watch Fox News, you'll see Sean Hannity say, well, we know the Iranians are doing this, and we know the Iranians are doing that, and we know the Iranians are doing this, and so therefore, what are we waiting for? They were already at war against us in this way, that way, and the other. And it's this background noise, these kind of unproven but never challenged assertions that float. Those are the things that he gets to tick off on his hand. And the first one is that Iran supports international terrorism. That phrase is deliberately vague enough that you're supposed to think of Al-Qaeda and be scared. But of course, the Iranian regime is bitter enemies with Osama bin Laden and Ayman al-Zawahiri. And the ties that they have to international terrorism are to Hamas in the West Bank and to Hezbollah in Lebanon, neither of which are enemies of the United States, and neither of which have ever attacked us